Is Kawhi Leonard a top 10 player in the NBA again? Stay tuned, you'll see what I have to say about that. Welcome to the Bloomer Deals channel. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Appreciate you being here today for the Kawhi Leonard video. Kawhi started off the year subpar, coming off that ACL injury from 2 years ago. He wasn't playing very many minutes, wasn't scoring very much, but the second half of the season, he's been balling, and we're going to dive into some of the numbers to explain that change that he's made over the season. It's All-Star Weekend, a good time to take a step back, reflect on the season, dive into some numbers, and Kawhi Leonard is a good player to do that too because he has just ascended this year. Some people even putting him top 10 in their NBA rankings again. We'll see, but before we dive into some of the numbers, let's take a step back. Remember where Kawhi came from, his journey in the NBA, some of his numbers over the year, and then we'll dive into this year. So let's go into it. Kawhi Leonard, drafted 2011, number 15 overall by not the San Antonio Spurs, by the Indiana Pacers, and they traded him on draft night, which is funny because in 2010, they drafted Paul George. So Paul George and Kawhi Leonard could have been teammates in Indiana long before the Clippers days. But no, Indiana traded Kawhi to San Antonio. So Kawhi came out of San Diego State, and that's not a big basketball school. He was mostly a defensive-minded player back then, so he fell to 15. Let's look at some of the players before him. So Kyrie Irving, number 1 out of Duke that season, the reason why LeBron came back to Cleveland to win that chip. Derek Williams, that was a whiff. Enes Kanter at 3, now known as Enes Freedom. Tristan Thompson, Cleveland just had so many draft picks back then. They had no, that's after LeBron left, so they just racked up these high draft picks. Valanciunas, Jan Vesely, Bismack Biyombo, Brandon Knight, known best for being crossed over by Kyrie in the Rising Stars game. Kemba Walker, who had an amazing few years in the NBA, cut short by injuries recently. Jimmy Fredette, who was chucking up 35-footers before Steph Curry was at BYU. He played in China for a while. Klay Thompson, number 11 by Golden State. Might be the steal of the draft other than Kawhi Leonard, a Splash Brother 4-time champ with the Golden State. Alec Burks, the Morris Bros coming out of Kansas, and Kawhi Leonard, number 15 here, you can see from San Diego State, drafted by Indiana Pacers, traded to San Antonio that night, and that's when his career started to take off. So let's dive into some of the numbers of Kawhi's career. You can see his points per game were at around 8 his rookie season. Again, he was known as that tenacious defender with the big hands known as the claw. But over the years, slowly adding to his offensive game. And by year 6, he was averaging 26 points per game. Shows you the work he put in, not known as an offensive player coming into the league, but ended up being one of the best mid-range assassins in our game. Has always shot good from 3-point, hovering around those high 30 percentages. Field goal percentage always around 50. He's always been an efficient scorer. It's just he started scoring more and more and being harder to deal with. 2015 and 2016 is when he won Defensive Player of the Year awards. So he was one of the best two-way players. Starting in 2015, he didn't get some of that recognition until he went to Toronto, but he was one of those best players with Kevin Durant, with LeBron James back then as a two-way star. 2016 is when he won that chip with San Antonio, won Finals MVP. And then his relationship with San Antonio soured a little bit. So there were some injury concerns, some miscommunications with the team, and essentially San Antonio traded him for almost very little, I'd have to say, to Toronto. And Toronto won the chip in his first year. Toronto went on, he was the Finals MVP. They beat Golden State, unfortunately, after KD and Klay got injured. And he was the Finals MVP for the second time in only, 4 years? Ended up signing that summer with the LA Clippers. Almost went to the Lakers. I mean, people thought he might team up with LeBron at Staples Center with the Lakers, but no. He chose the Clippers. He asked the Clippers to trade for Paul George, so they gave up Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, among other things, to OKC to get Paul George on the team. And that's when the Los Angeles Clippers' tenure with Kawhi and PG started. And unfortunately, looking back at the last 4 years, it hasn't been great. So you can see here the first year, 2019-2020, they lost in the Western Conference semis to the Denver Nuggets. And that's when you started hearing things about, oh, the culture's bad, the locker room's bad, Kawhi and PG get special treatment, and everyone's unhappy about it. Doc Rivers got fired that summer, and Ty Lue, the assistant coach, got promoted up. Again, Ty Lue, amazing coach. I can't believe the Lakers didn't sign him that summer, actually, because LeBron wanted a new head coach at that point. And the second season, the 2020-2021 season, they looked good. Paul George and Kawhi were looking great. They were the first team to come back from a 0-2 start in the playoffs twice in the same year, the same playoffs. But then Kawhi got injured, tore his ACL that playoffs. They ended up losing in the Western Conference Finals. Kawhi sits out the whole of next year. All of 2021, 2022, Kawhi is out with that ACL injury. Paul George is in and out of the lineups with his own injuries. And that brings us to the 2022-2023 season, where Kawhi Leonard hadn't played in more than a year. The Clippers had a lot of change in their player personnel, and people weren't too excited about Kawhi. I mean, people thought, oh, he's never going to be the same. His knee injuries, his ankle injuries. And the Ringer, I think, had him like 30th or 40th on their top 100 players in the NBA rankings. But just 2 days ago, when I'm recording this video, February 16th, the Ringer updated their rankings of top 100 players. And let's see where they put Kawhi. Jokic at 1, Giannis at 2, Luka at 3. Although this order might be contentious, I think that's pretty set in stone, these top 3 players. Steph at 4, KD at 5, and Embiid at 6. Tatum at 7, LeBron at 8, and Kawhi at 9. So he has ascended to 9th in player rankings after starting the season at 30th, when he was averaging less than 20 points per game, coming off the bench for the Clippers because of injury concerns. And now he's 9th. So people are high on Kawhi Leonard right now, but it's sort of quiet. Part of the basketball community is recognizing that Kawhi Leonard is playing like a star, but a lot of people aren't really paying attention to the Clippers. They're 4th right now in the West, and let's look at the Clippers standings from throughout the year. So you look November 1st, they were 11th in the Western Conference, and slowly they've chipped away, and right now they're sitting at, where are they, 4th in the Western Conference as of February 16th, as of the All-Star break. And if we look at Kawhi Leonard's scoring over the course of this season, you can see he started off not doing super hot. He was at 10 points per game, roughly, for the first few months of the season. And you can see that just went up and up and up. And by early January, he was balling out again. He was back to being that star that we love to see. So this is a really interesting chart to look at, because if we separate this by pre-January 6th and post-January 6th, we can try to analyze what is different in Kawhi Leonard's game that has led to this very stark two seasons within one in terms of production and efficiency. So this is where we go to the cleaningtheglass.com and analyze some of the statistics to understand why Kawhi Leonard has this 2 seasons in one phenomenon where he started bad and ended great. So if we look, start date October 1st and end date January 6th. And I'm getting these dates based on this trends chart, right? So it's around January 6th where he starts making this change from subpar to ballin' amazing star player. And so essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking for October 1st to January 6th. And then we're going to look from January 6th to February 22nd, so All-Star weekend. And let's try to analyze some of the difference between these two. So, October 1st to January 6th. This is the shooting frequency table. So we're going to be looking at what percent of Kawhi Leonard's shots are from different areas of the floor. Maybe he was shooting a bunch of mid-ranges and now he's shooting a bunch of threes. We'll see. So at the rim, he's shooting 22% of his shots. And in blue or orange, this is where he ranks in terms of all NBA players. Below 50 will be blue, above 50 will be orange or red. So he wasn't shooting much at the rim. He's known as a mid-range shooter, and so all mid-range, 53% is 96. He's in the top 4 percentages of all players in terms of shooting mid-range shots. But that's what he's always done. So it's not crazy to think that's abnormal or that's why he was struggling in the beginning of the season. In terms of three-pointers, around 25% of his shots were from three. So we got the rim 22%, mid-range 53%, and three-pointers 25%. And let's see how that compares to the second date, which is again January 6th, February 22nd. So at the rim is 23. So again, if we go back 22 previously, 23 now. Mid-range. 53 previously, 53 now. So he's essentially shooting the same exact shots. Again, we'll go back. All three-pointers. 25 previously, 25 now. So he's really not changing his shot frequency in terms of where he's shooting on the court. So what's happening? So let's go back here and look at shooting accuracy. Maybe he's just he wasn't shooting well and now he's shooting well. So let's look at it. Shooting accuracy. We'll go change both these charts. And okay, now we're looking October 1st to January 6th again, the early part of this season. Kawhi Leonard was shooting 69% at the rim. 51% at mid-range. Again, he's in the top 3% in terms of mid-range shooting and mid-range shooting frequency and mid-range accuracy. And three-pointers, he started off the year 27% shooting three-pointers. And you can look at the sample size here. It's not a small sample size. He shot 17 of 64. So he was not shooting well from three-pointer to begin the season. Now let's look at that second half chunk of the season. At the rim, shooting 62% compared to 69% to begin the season, so not bad. We'll again look in mid-range. He used to be shooting 51% in that first half, and then he's at 50%. So again, not much of a change. He's shooting the same frequency and he's shooting the same accuracy from those spots on the floor. So first half of the season, 27% of three, which we talked about. In the second half of the season, 47% from three with a big sample size of 40 makes out of 85 attempts. That is the difference in Kawhi Leonard's game right now. He's shooting amazing from three-pointer after shooting terribly to start the season. So he's in the top 7% of all three-point shooters in that time period. With corner threes, 92%. He's 12 of 13 from all his corner threes. Non-corner threes, 28 for 72. Total of 40 of 85. He is on a heater in terms of his three-point shooting. And that is the difference between what we saw as the first half of the season struggles to the second half of the season domination. And it's really interesting to use stats like cleaning the glass to understand what is different in Kawhi Leonard's game and what is leading him to be a dominant player again. So this is really interesting. I'm really happy to understand what's happening with Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if it's sustainable to be shooting 47% from three, but hey, he started the season really poorly. He's clearly getting better. I think partly it's because he's always had a sort of line drive shot. It's not a high arc shot. And coming off the ACL injury, he probably just didn't have much jump. He wasn't getting high in the air. He wasn't getting a lot of the legs under him phenomenon. But now he's comfortable. Now he's in the rhythm. Now he's grooving. And he actually has energy below his body. He actually has jump to get air on the ball and get these long shots in. So I don't think it's surprising someone coming off injury to start bad on the long shots because that uses a lot of legs. And then once they're comfortable, once they got their groove, once they got that leg strength back, they can shoot those long distance threes. So Kawhi Leonard, really 2 seasons in one, which you can see beautifully on this chart. And now he's balling out. I'm really excited to see it post All-Star break. I think the Clippers might catch up with the Kings for the 3rd seed. Who knows about Memphis and Denver? I think those two are sort of the top two to the top two that are going to hold in the Western Conference. We'll see where the Suns end up right now. If we look at the Western Conference, you can see the Clippers are in 4th, only a game back from Sacramento, but the Suns are right there, and with KD coming back, that's going to be a little scary. But I think the Clippers will either finish 3rd or 4th in the Western Conference. And how would that be if they ended up playing Luka Doncic again in the playoffs? That would be amazing to see Kawhi and Luka go after each other, Paul George and Kyrie go after each other. I'm really excited to see those dynamics if they end up in the playoffs against each other. So another thing we can look at here is Kawhi Leonard's on-off statistics, which essentially says when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor, how are the Clippers doing versus when Kawhi Leonard is on the bench. And it's a good indicator of how one player influences the whole team. So we can see here 2022-2023, which is this season, Kawhi Leonard's points per possession. So the Clippers are plus 11.7 points per 100 possessions when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor versus when he's off the floor. That's in the 98th percentile. So Kawhi Leonard is he's in the top 2 percentile in terms of influencing how many points a team gets per possession when he's on the court. That's incredible. So Kawhi Leonard is having a huge influence in the Clippers this year. Another thing I want to show you, it's not just that his scoring has gone up. This is partly because his minutes have gone up too. Again, coming off that injury, he wasn't playing that much. He was actually coming off the bench to start the year. That minutes have gone up, those points have gone up. We see the 3-point percentage that has elevated, which is what we looked at before. How about things like steals, blocks, things like blocks? That has definitely gone up. And so it's just really cool to see how a player can ascend over the course of a season. We like to box individuals into these seasons and just think of it as a single season. That's exactly what we do when we're looking at these stats, right? We're looking at all of 22-23. He's averaging 22 points per game. But it's the tale of two halves within a season to understand why Kawhi is doing what he's doing. Thank you to the Cleaning the Glass for letting us understand, letting us dive into these numbers, understand why Kawhi is balling out this year. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Kawhi Leonard, I think if he keeps this up, let's give him one more month. Hope he stays healthy. Hope he keeps this up. And if he does, I sort of agree with the Ringer. I think he should be number 9 on the list. But right now it's a little premature. Shea is number 10. I think Shea should be ahead of him. He's averaging 31 points per game. Book? I think Book should probably be ahead of him. Dame averaging 31.4. Mitchell, who scored 70 points in a game this season. I do love Kawhi Leonard, but we do have to understand that some of these other players have been playing amazing the whole season, where Kawhi is just sort of playing well the second half. So we do have to respect some of these players. I would put them ahead of Kawhi Leonard right now. But again, if Kawhi keeps this up with his two-way play, with his defensive prowess, with the ability to lead the Clippers to a top 3 seed in the Western Conference, he might break my top 10, but not yet. All right, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Bloomer Deals channel. Like and subscribe. Appreciate it. Comment, what do you think? Is Kawhi top 10 in the NBA yet? I don't know. He has some work to do for me, but let me know what you think. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Over and out. Peace out. Big up. Peace. Cleaning the glass. Thanks, y'all.